Good evening, I'm Jeff Koinange, and this is Jeff Koinange Live. And you know, if it's Thursday, it's all about inspiration. I've said all this week, it was all about the literary giants. I have to say that word very slowly in case I slip and stride on it, Anyway, the giants were on. If you were watching the show yesterday, we had Professor Ngugi, who was unbelievably amazing. Today, it's a family affair. Imagine someone who's written not less than 40 books, maybe even more. He doesn't really know. 40 plus books. And you all remember his very first book, The River Between. By the way, we did a poll earlier today on Twitter, Unscientific, and the winner, hands down, was this one book that most of you remember, The River Between. However, he's in town for the celebration of the 50th anniversary of Weep Not Child, courtesy East African Educational Publishers. I said that right, didn't I, Pete? Thank you very much. 50 years since Weep Not Child was published. And he went on to publish book after book after book, and in between had 10 children. I don't know how, but that's another story. Decolonizing the Mind, The Trial of Dedan Kimathi with Ngugi, Secret Lives, remember that? A Grain of Wheat, and on and on and on. Later on, there was one amazing book, 2006, called The Wizard of the Crow. Some of you may remember this. In Kikuyu, it's called Morogiwa Kagogo.
Yeah.
I said that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
By the way, just compare the English version and Kikuyu version.
No, there are 2 other volumes. There are 3 other volumes.
Okay. All right, I was just checking. His latest, which he premiered, rolled out today at Alliance High School, his alma mater, is called In the House of the Interpreter. Amazing story. He'll tell us about it. This man, what more can be said about Professor Ngugi Thiong'o other than he's distinguished professor of English and comparative literature at University of California, Irvine. Arguably one of the best known, most famous authors, writers, playwrights out of this country. He came this close. He was shortlisted for a Nobel Prize in Literature, I think twice, but he took it in stride because that's the kind of guy he is. He's here tonight, and shortly we're going to have his son, Ngugi, who has a whole bunch of books here. This looks like a lot. There's more books on this bench today than in my house, but that's another story. They're going to be talking to us for the next hour or so. Sit back, folks. My Twitter handle is @KoinangeJeff. Mukoma has a Twitter handle. It's @MukomaGoge. The Prof, well, still in analog land, you know, but it's okay.
Right.
Professor Ngugi Thiong'o. Good to see you, sir.
Good to meet you.
Good Lord. Oh, my
name is Ngugi Thiong'o.
Thiong'o. Before it was James Ngugi.
Yes.
Remember?
But I dropped James.
But it was James. Jimmy. Jimmy Jam.
Exactly. That's why I had to drop it, man. Huh? See, listen. When African people were taken as slaves to America in a slave plantation, the first thing that happened to them, they were stripped of their names. They had to acquire the name of their master.
Yeah, slave master.
Yeah. And when they became masters, they had to acquire the name of the new master. The same mentality was brought into Africa in the colonial era. Okay? Only instead of losing your whole name, they had to give you a European name. The implication being European names are holy or Christian. But why can't Njoroge or Nyango or Mutiso be also holy?
So what are you saying about Jeff?
So what are we saying?
Jeff?
Exactly, that's a challenge I have. Jeff is very famous all over the world. But why should Jeff always shadow you? So that any achievement you have, Jeff, the European name, has a share. Right?
Yes.
Do you see
what you mean.
Why can't we let, Koinange, with the history of Koinange, stand? So that any achievement goes to Koinange, and we can put Jeff aside. Don't you think?
Wow.
Just as I did with James.
James.
And you know what? When I told my publishers, because they'd already published my first two books.
Right. A River Between.
The River Between and Weep Not Child,
yep.
you know, under and A Grain of Wheat, under the name James Ngugi.
Yes.
Then I told them, look, I've seen the light. I've seen the light.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I want my books from now on to be under my name, Ngugi Wan Thiong'o, which simply means Ngugi, son of Thiong'o. It's the name I was given at birth by my mother and my father. And the publishers then, who are based then in London, said, but you can't do that.
Yeah.
James, you are known all over the world.
As James.
As James Ngugi, now what do you do about marketing your books and so on? I said, no, I can't continue with a lie. I saw the light, I can't go back to darkness.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I said, let's do it. All my books have to be under Ngugi Wan Thiong'o.
But there was a big...
Even the ones which had been published under James.
But that was a big risk, Prof, because you know, Muzungus, when they're shown this name here, the first thing I would say, you know, well, not me, but them, would be Ngugi Thiong'o.
That's all right. That's all right. But I don't want to simplify. I don't want to make it easy for them to say my name, any more than they make it easy for me to say their name. When I go to America and they call themselves Johnston or Robertson, I have to say Robertson. And somebody can say Robertson. But okay,
yes.
Right?
Okay.
It's their name.
Yeah.
Okay. They don't simplify it for me and tell me, look, you know, to make it easy for you, we shall call ourselves Ngugi or Joroge or Nyango to make it easy for you. Why do we think we need to make it always easy for the West to understand us? Why can't they take a step to understand us?
I like that.
And we do it by actually shedding off what is really ours. And we accept that to be religious, to be Christian, to be holy, to be accepted in heaven, that you must take on a European name. You know what? I was in Zambia recently, and there are some people who have been baptized Spanner, or the best one, Crankshaft. Any name that sounds European is Christian and holy.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, Zimbabwe next door, they have amazing names. They have the name Jealous, Forgiveness.
Let me tell you a story. I went to see the late Gogowa Merie in Zimbabwe when he was working there from Cameroon to Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
And he was introducing some of the actors. So one of them, my hand, I'm Ngugi. She said, forgive me. Then I said, I am Ngugi, forgive me. So I didn't understand this.
Right.
So I went to another person, and I was talking to that lady, and I told her I'm Ngugi. Oh, forgive me. So every time I refer to her, people would say, forgive me. It's only to ask Ngugi Miriam. I don't understand this. Every time I talk about a girl, they say, forgive me. What's her name? Forgive me. What's her name? Forgive me. Then Ngugi laughed.
Yeah.
He said, oh, that's her Christian name. Right? Right? Yeah.
All right, what's in the name? Good. River Between. I've been getting tweets, by the way, lots of tweets. They've been coming in all day long, and someone was asking, what was the question I told you earlier on? Why did you kill somebody so early in...
Muthoni.
Yeah, why did you kill Muthoni so early in the River Between? Real quick.
No, when as an artist, you have followed the logic of the narrative, really. Once you are in the first few pages of a narrative, quite frankly, the narrative takes over. And there's a kind of logic that goes into it. So, put it this way, within the first pages of writing, you think you're in control, but there comes a moment where the narrative and the characters take over. So you follow that logic. And even if you try to do it something else, they refuse. They say no,
Yeah.
right?
Got to follow the logic.
Yeah, follow the logic of
I
the
like
artist.
it. I like that.
Right.
I had said earlier, this was the most popular book among Twitter folks out there. They loved The River Between, and they don't know why it hasn't been made into a movie.
Let me tell you about this book a little bit. This book was my first novel. I wrote it in my second year of college at Makerere University, which was then affiliated to the University of London. I remember this because I remember I finished December 31st, 1961. And when I was writing this novel, it was not expected that an African, or even alone a student, would be writing novel books. So there were a few sniggers. Oh, look at him. He's writing a novel. Oh, look at him. Okay.
Yeah.
But the key thing is I had to persist and keep the cause. Because as I was telling people at Alliance today, for me, and I think what should be the motto for every African person, the impossible is that which has not been made possible, right?
Yep.
So it's for us as African people to always, even within the rescue the possible from the impossible.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why the novel is still very close
But then,
to my heart.
correct, but you didn't publish that. You went on to write Weep Not Child, right?
Yes, there's a story to that actually. This book was written for a competition, East African novel writing competition. So in fact, on that first 1961 is when I took the manuscript to the East African Literature Bureau, as the Kenya Literature Bureau was then called, okay? So I was waiting for results for the competition.
Yeah.
But in between, well, let me backtrack a little bit. Yeah? Before that, I had sent a collection of my short stories to publishers in London. I did not know that. We just looked at, this is a publisher, Faber, or so, and you just, oh, here are my collection of short stories, published. So, of course, I got the famous rejection slip. It was so devastating.
Yes.
And I remember writing my diary about this, and I remember saying, my reaction to that was, I'll write another novel.
They rejected Ngugi?
They reject short stories.
It must have been James.
So-
It must have been the word James.
Probably, But they rejected short stories. So my reaction was to start another novel, which became Weep Not Child, And Weep Not Child, which I'd written also, I was accepted first for publication. That's why the novel Weep Not Child came out in April 1964. By the time the results of this competition come out, that had already been accepted. This was also accepted, and that's why this came after Weep Not Child in 1965, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So in a way, they are they belong to the same period.
Sure,
Okay,
And
right,
they came closely after each other.
This like the second born, the second born, who takes over the inheritance of the firstborn, right?
I like that. Prof, I want to talk more about that. I mean, this is so exciting, it's so incredible, but time really flies. I mean, all these grain of wheat people talk about, decolonizing the mind, and then writing in Kikuyu. You shunned the English language. I want to talk about, hold that thought.
Okay.
You just shunned and started writing in Kikuyu. And you got a lot of flack for that.
Yeah.
You got a lot of criticism for that. We're going to do that, and we're also going to bring in the professor from Cornell.
Oh, who is that?
That young man, I mean, look at the books he's written.
I thought there was only a professor around here.
There's only one professor in the house.
All right.
Let's take a break, come back.
Okay, thank you.
My goodness, there's just not enough time, but we have to keep rolling. Professor Thiong'o in the house. talking about his very first book, which was his second, that became his first, and then it was the second, or something like that. Anyway, you get the picture. Keep tweeting at Koinange Jeff, at Mukoma Ngugi. Speaking of Mukoma, we're gonna bring him in after this break and talk about his books, his dad's inspiration, all those years living outside this country. So much to talk about. That's why this week has been all about the literary giants. I tell you, you cannot get this kind of stuff anywhere else. Keep tweeting as we take a break. JKL will be back in a moment.